What's going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports All Plays Network. This is the full count. I'm here today with Ray Cruz.
Hey, how you doing, Nate?
I'm doing well. This show's gonna be a little bit different. Apologize in advance and doing a couple of shares right now. Doing them from my phone as we continue this. Now, we don't have Greg tonight because he is actually because he couldn't make it, and he will be here next week. But to start things off, let's go ahead and talk about the top 5 Cleveland Indians pitchers of all time. Now, I'm going to go first on this. I'm going to go from 5 to 1. Go again with these pitchers up in the north. Well, we talked about the Detroit Tigers last week and how these pitchers had some of the funniest names. Well, Cleveland Indians had a very some funny names as well. Early Wynn. He pitched from 1949 to 1957, and he had his second stint with the Cleveland Indians. And he pitched in 1963. Wynn was a gruff competitor who was famous for saying he knocked on his grandmother down on the plate if she dug in too much. Yeah, she definitely had some weird sayings. So let's just say going into some of the stats here, perhaps, so he was really great at, throwing curveballs under, he did have a little bit of guidance under former Indians pitcher, the pitching coach, Mel Harder. Wynn's career writing himself for the better in Cleveland. No pitcher won more games in the AL during the 1950s, as 4 times Wynn has won 20 or more games and kept the ERA around 3. Winning the 1950 ERA crown with a 3.2 mark was the highest ever recorded by the league leader. However, ball 4 was a familiar call when the umpire for the umpires when he pitched. He had 1,775 career walks, which was the highest out of all the major league leaguers until Nolan Ryan surpassed and nearly lapped it. Wynn's prime was in Cleveland. He spent 5 years in Chicago, where he had one last year of greatness in 1959, posting a 22-10 record with a winning Cy Young Award while taking the White Sox to the World Series. However, he ran out of gas and was released by the White Sox in 1962 with 229 career wins. Although he made the entry to the 300 club, Wynn made it to the Cleveland Indians for one last chance in 1963 when he was 43 years old. In June, they gave him the roster spot. Wynn, in his 5th appearance in this career, circled for a minimum of 5 innings on July 13th against Kansas City, but finally earned credit for a milestone win, which was the last for his major league baseball pitcher. I'm going to go farther back to Stan Koleski. He is the younger brother of Harry Koleski, who was a great ace pitcher for Detroit. He became his equal and then passed up Harry's quick demise for a game in the late 1910s. The two would become the first pair of siblings to both win 20 games in the majors. Koleski thrived at the Spitball while it was legal. His career was extended because of it. While he was one of 17 pitchers who continued using the spitter after the abolition in 1920s. But his first year with the handicap was more difficult and a bittersweet one because his wife unfortunately passed away in May. Koleski recovered with a career high of 24 games, which for his third and fourth straight years with 20-plus victories, and emerged as a hero for the Indians with a triumphant World Series over Brooklyn, winning 3 5-hit complete gems, allowing just 2 runs in 27 innings while averaging 87 pitches per start. The wins were more difficult to come by afterward as the Indians began to regress in the standings. But Koleski remained sharp after winning his first 2 career ERA titles in 1923 with a 2.76 mark despite a 13-14 record. After an off year in 1924, the Indians shipped Koleski to Washington, where he revived his game and had one final good year in 1925, leading the Senators to AL pennant. Number 3 is Addie Joss. He pitched from 1902 to 1910. He was like one of the great pitchers in the dead ball era his ERA was 1.89. Second of all time in Cleveland Indians history, behind Ed Walsh. Now, Josh was gifted and was a gifted young man whose forlorn expressions on almost every photo ever taken of him seemed to be telegraphed. Fortunately, he passed away, and his career was short at 31 years old. I'm going to go number 2. I have Bob Lemon. Distinguished among other honors for being the only pitcher in the Hall of Fame who began his major league career as a position player. Lemon joined Feller, Early Wynn, and Mike Garcia to shape together one of the most formidable pitching rotations ever seen. Los Angeles, he lived in LA for a little bit, and he was a great third baseman and outfielder. But then he switched over to being a pitcher, and then began being a relief pitcher for the Indians in 1946. In 1947, The spot opened for a rotation, midway through the season. Lemon took full advantage, won 10 games after July 31st, won 20 the next year with a no-hitter. A league-leading 10 shutouts with 2 solid efforts for the Indians in their World Series against the Braves. In 1978, Lemon returned to the baseball spotlight as a wisely low-key successful fill-in for Billy Martin as his first of 5 firings by the New York Yankee owner George Steinbrenner. Lemon quietly restored sanity to the clubhouse and led the Yankees to a 48-20 record, and then and a World Series title to finish the year. Calmly explaining to the press, "I tell George what I think and what I do as he says." He almost pulled it off again with the Steinbrenner tab to replace Martin towards the end of the 1981 campaign, but the Yankees lost that year to the Fall Classic to LA. And then the last one is Bob Feller, as I explained earlier. Bob Feller, he pitched from 1936 to 1941. And then he also had a second stint with the Yankees. He pitched from 1945 to 1956. Rarely has anyone had more of a collaborated and accessible major league debut than Feller, a 17-year-old flame-throwing wonderkind who began his career by pitching 3 innings of an exposition game for the Indians against the St. Louis Cardinals, then striking out 8 batters. He once clocked a 160. That's way too fast. 106 miles per hour throw. Later of the collaboration showed by the measurements were actually closer to 99. So the measurements were off, but Feller was nicknamed the Rapid Robert by accident. It's a little quick funny story. Early in his career, Feller had a blazing speed that matched by his wilderness. Rogers Hornsberry, the manager of the St. Louis Browns, that Feller possessed everything but control. Feller had an AL strikeouts 7 times, but also was the 4-time leader in walks, which 208 passes alone in 1938 to set the all-time record, which, by the way, still exists. 6 times over his career, he has walked 10 or more batters in a game. Now, he did have to go in a war, which is why he did have that little bit of a break between 1941 and 1945. But he has had an amazing career. In retirement, Feller remained wildly popular to Indians fans and was a fixture every spring at the team's camp, annually throwing out the first pitch for the team's first exposition until he unfortunately passed away at the year of 2010. That year, he was 92 years old. So, Ray, now is your turn. What are your top 5 Cleveland Indians pitchers of all time?
All right, mine is going to be a little bit different here. Mine is at number 5 is going with Gaylord Perry. In 1972 to 1975, the Indians were so happy to welcome Perry after being swiped for McDowell in 1972. Though Perry was 4 years older, his arm was readily fresh with the plenty of mileage to go, while McDowell's was headed for a burnout in San Francisco. Although Perry's stint with the Indians lasted a little more than 3 years, it was highly productive, successfully, and most importantly, for an attention starved Indian of the ERA headline grabbing. In his first year with the Tribe in 1972, Gaylord Perry produced what is regularly considered his finest season, a 24-16 record with a career low of 1.92 ERA and 342.2 innings that gave him the first of two Cy Young Awards. Opposing managers played to Perry's reputation as a spitball artist who got away with it. Yankees manager Ralph Honkett once tore to the mound while Perry was on it to take his cap off and began alternatively checking it out and getting it dust with infield dirt. Detroit manager Billy Martin even brought in bloodhounds, or more appropriately, a spit hound, to sniff out possible doctored balls. Perry was defended in just by the Indians pitcher Gabe Paul, who gave Gaylord is very honorable man. He only calls for the spitter when he needs it. Perry himself enjoys the notoriety because it affects opponents more than he, but his sinker pitch was almost an effective and reliable substitute for the spitter within and when he actually used it. So that was my number 5. My number 4 is Sam McDowell. In 1961 and 1971, Sudden Sam resided considered with a period of sexual strength for major league pitchers, which made his numbers all be more effective over a 6-year period. Between 1965 and 1970, McDowell led the American League in strikeouts, topping the 300 mark twice, but also led the league in most walks, although with 153 give up in 1971 alone. So McDowell's fastball success, which came after he stopped taking advice from all corners and began seeking improvement from within, led many to anoint him as the Sandy Koufax of American League, a status he was happy to soak in. McDowell was often effective as he was while leading the league in 1965 with a 2.18 ERA. He set a career low at 1.81 ERA in 1968. Years of pitchers placing second in the league behind teammates Lewis Trent. He won 20 consecutive games. He won 20 games for the only time in his career in 1970. That was my number 4. My number 3 is Corey Kluber from 2011 to 2019. The right-hander from Alabama by the way of Texas developed into one of the American League's top ace of the 2010s, while lacking almost any emotion on the amount, which led to a nickname, Kloblot. He didn't much care for it, but what Kluber lacked in personal, he more than made up for with a wealth of pitches, including a sharp, if not overpowering fastball, a terrific sinker, a slider, and a cutter. He, after being picked by the Cleveland as the obscure minor league name in 3 teams, 4-player deal in 2010, Kluber accelerated his path to the major league and became a regular starter by 2013. A year later, he was suddenly the American League Cy Young Award winner with an end record of 18-9 record and sterling 2.44 ERA. If it would be provide to be anything but a fluke performance, Kluber was third in 2016 Cy Young vote and won a second honor in 2017 after a dominant 18-4 record, but a career best at 2.25 ERA after taking a few months to warm up following an early back injury. And then in 2018, he finally broke through to the hollow 20 win, losing just 7 with an ERA 2.89 ERA. The only hiccup during the period was not of his own making, possible a deficient 1916 mark and 2015, despite a solo 3.49 ERA and an impressive outing in which he struck out a career high in 18 St. Louis Cardinals in 8 innings while pitching 1 hit shutout ball. So that was my number 3. My number 2 is Mike Garcia, 1949 to 1959. The Burley, California native nicknamed the Big Bear was the most underrated and certainly the least memorable of the greatest Indians pitcher of the 1950s, probably due to the fact that his career was in a top gear for only 5 years. He made an impressive debut in 1949, leading the league with a 2.36 ERA while working half of the time out of the bullpen, moving to the rotation of the following year. Garcia struggled on an 11-11 mark, but then won 79 game in won in 1979 games, including 15 strikeouts against just 41 losses over the next 4 seasons, and clinching the ERA crown in 1954 with the mark of 2.64 ERA. After the terrific run, Garcia hit into a mediocre run in which he struggled to win in 10 games before he was reduced. And my number one will be Mel Harder, 1928 to 1947. The longest tenure Indian. Harder began in his 20-year reign in Cleveland, holding the fort down as the team ace until Fowler came along, but he's well regarded as one of the most productive pitchers of his time and continued to his contribute after his playing days, working as a team's pitching coach, steering and helping to evolve the great rotation of Feller, Lemon, Wayne, and Garcia, and later the fleeting success of Herb Score. Harder at his first was hard .500 pitcher, as simplified when he became the only pitcher not named left groove between 1928 and 1940 to win an ERA title, producing a 2.95 mark and a 15-17 record, sharply guarded by an anemic Indians offense that gave him only 3 runs per game, 2 below the league average, in a strike of periodic Justin Harder. Followed that up by winning 20 games or more over the next 2 seasons. They would be the only 2 time he'll get there. Though he never made it to the World Series, the Indian reached the Fall Classic in 1948 and a record after he retired. Harder found fame at the All-Star game, totaling a record 13 scoreless innings over the 4 appearances, including a sterling 5 innings effort to earn the win at the second ever Midsummer Classic in 1934. That was my top 5.
So I said this the other day on Bring It. It was on Bring It. Right after UOL and Andrew had their technology incident where they had their where they were a little bit static and they had to hop off. So John Suggs mentioned in a comment about who's having a worse season, Texas or the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I said, hey, Texas Rangers have a lot of young guys. So even though we're one of the worst teams in baseball right now, I seriously see a roller coaster going on. We're gonna have chunk of wins here, chunk of losses here, chunk of wins here, chunk of losses here. As soon as I say that, the Rangers are rising up on that roller coaster again. But a friend of mine off the network, he pointed out that hey, the Oakland Athletics, which is his favorite baseball team, currently has a losing record this season against the Texas Rangers. Not in baseball period, but against the Texas Rangers. We've done well. This is actually the first time that Texas Rangers have taken a series against the Oakland Athletics away at Oakland Coliseum since 2016. Now, to be honest, do you think it's just because we were playing Oakland, a team that we seem to, even though they're one of the best teams in the league right now, a team that we have been easily been able to beat this season? Or do you think this roller coaster means that they're trying to there's the fire being sparked?
I don't know. It's just hard to believe, that certain teams have good, parameters against other teams, and so far this season, the Texas Rangers has that niche over this team, over the Oakland. So I don't know how exactly what it is. I mean, if you look at the last 10 games for Texas, they're 7-3. Oakland is 4-6 in the last 10 games. So I mean, Oakland could be hitting that drought where they're starting to lose a little bit here of their momentum, and then Texas gaining their momentum. But I mean, the Texas Rangers right now, they're 17 games out of Houston, and Oakland's 2 games out of Houston in that Western and the American League West. So I mean, we don't know if this is a trend that Texas may caught on fire. We won't know that until after the All-Star break, once they get the break in, if that momentum stops for the Rangers, or if the momentum keeps continuing on through the All-Star break.
Yeah, I totally can see that. I mean, now I get that we were playing against another one of the worst teams in the league, and the Kansas City Royals. Even though they did have a strong start to their season, the season's still 162 games, but we swept the Kansas City Royals, which is my the point that I'm trying to bring up. So, I mean, I can seriously point out either way. I think we might be on that upper end of that, rising up on that roller coaster for a little bit. Now, I don't think that we are going to finish off making a playoff appearance, but again, this proves my point. I see us, being going up on the roller coaster and going up on the way down. Now, to talk about your team, to move on to this next topic, the Atlanta Braves. They are the only team, even though that they have a losing record, they are the only team to score 20 runs in a single game. Now, and they did that twice. They've done that twice this season. First time, I get it. It's Pittsburgh Pirates. They suck. I get that. The second time was against the New York Mets, the only team in that division who has a winning record. So, what's going on with your, saying that is a good way, but what's going on with your Atlanta Braves?
Well, see, I mean, it's like this. Certain point of a season, the Atlanta Braves have played mediocre baseball, and then certain parts of the season they play great baseball. They play like they're unbeatable. And if you look at what they did against the Mets in this last series, they put 3 runs on DeGrom right off that bat, the last game of the series, and they beat them 5-4. I think it was either 4-3 or 5-4, and they beat Grom. And to me, they put 21s in that game before that, and then they came back tonight and beat the Marlins 1-0. So they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. And they're 40-41. They're only 3 games behind out of first place according to the standings, and they're only 1 game behind the Washington National to come up in second place in the the National League East. So like the Braves are now trying to figure out on what they are and if they're going to be contenders. And like I said, we don't know how good this the Atlanta Braves could be. We know they were supposed to be one of these top teams coming in this year, and they finally found their niche. So I mean, it's just that's the question that we gotta have to find out. To me, I think the Braves might be hitting that peak. They got some starting pitchers back from their injuries. So is that helping them? Can their starting pitchers are getting deeper into the ball games a little bit, too? So I mean, it's cutting out that weak bullpen that the Braves have. The Braves has a weak bullpen, and if you get to that bullpen early, then you might have a chance of beating them. If you get the bullpen late, they kind of take on the hang on. And to me, I think that series against the Mets could have left up, their confidence a little bit more too. and by beating one of the best pitchers in baseball and DeGrom, and whose ERA at the time was .09. But I think it was .064 or .094. He was still under 100, under one. So I mean, if they put up 3 runs against him, and that last night's game when Freeman hit the ball off the pitcher's leg, to me, the Mets pitcher wanted him to go to third. If he would have gone to third, they would have got the player out and it would have been still a tie game. But he decided to go to first. Freeman beat it out and go ahead, run, score. So I mean, to me, if we could stay healthy and the starting pitching the starting pitchers gets to at least 7.5 innings, then the Braves gonna have a better chance. If they have to get into the bullpen within around the 5th or 6th inning, then it's gonna be a struggle for the Braves.
Now, there's an analyst who is no longer on the network, but he pointed out that he likes it that the Atlanta Braves are having these injuries earlier on. If they can stay healthy, like after that moment early in the season, he thinks that this might be, a good thing. I don't want to say a good thing for the Atlanta Braves, but he rather have these injuries early in the season than have these injuries later in the season. So I guess what I'm trying to say. Now, do you think that that's what we're going to see? Do you think that these players are going to be healthy enough? I don't want to say past All-Star break, but midway between All-Star break and playoffs?
To me, when the All-Star break comes in the middle of the season and you already have plenty of injuries, some teams get healthy coming out of the All-Star break. But then you don't want that second half of be injured, to cost you effectively getting into the playoff Rams and stuff like that. When you're playing now, you're going from the marathon after the All-Star break begins to sprint, because you're jockeying for position all the way up to the All-Star break. At the All-Star break, you should be in well position now to where you can start sprinting towards the end of baseball season. I mean, the first 82 game, the first half of the season is a marathon. The second half is going to be where you can seeing what teams are they contenders or pretenders, and that's what separates when the All-Star break here. So you're going to see teams, who was lacking at the beginning of the season, they get their injuries back, can start making that run, and who can have a better second half of the season. To me, I think the Braves have always been a better second half team than they are a first half team. So we might see the Braves start jacking up and creeping up on the Mets. And when the pressure gets on the Mets, can the Mets handle that pressure? And that's going to be another, tell too. Which team is going to hold the pressure on them, and which team is going to be able to figure out how to keep their spacing between their second place team right now. Because if you look at it, there's not much two separations here. You got the American League East. Boston's up 4 games over the Tampa Bay Rays. Chicago's got a 6-game lead over Cleveland, their second place team. Houston's a 2-game over the Oakland Athletics. The Mets are 2.5 games over the Nationals, 3 games over the Braves, 4 games over the Phillies. But the Marlins are 8.5 games behind in that National League East. The Central Division, you got the biggest one. Milwaukee is 7.5 games over Chicago. And then you got the West, National League West, San Francisco Giants and Dodgers all evened up. And then you got the Padres only 3 games behind. So right now, the biggest lead in a division is the Central Division at 7.5 games over their second place team. Can they keep their pace going, or will they falter? Will Chicago move up, Cleveland, the Cincinnati Reds, or will St. Louis make that run? So we got to see what teams done after the All-Star break. And then you got the trade deadline coming up too. So if whoever makes that initial trade that they need, they could get better too. So I mean, right now we're playing with house money at the beginning of the season. After the All-Star break, that's when teams are who's going to contend, who's going to be a pretender or a contender. And that's why I think we might see the Braves start making that run towards that playoff run.
With your Atlanta Braves, what trade do you think you could see happening? Do you think that they're going to make a move with this MLB trade deadline, or do you think that it's going to be just a? Do you think it's not? They're going to make a move, and if so, who do you think they're going to pull for or trade away?
If a Braves going to make a trade here, the Braves going to need to make a trade for that good reliever. They need a good reliever. Their bullpen is average. If I was them, I'd try to see if I can pull up a good, setup guy or a good closer. I mean, the closer is suspect too. I mean, he's blown a few saves here and there. So I mean, if the Braves going to make a good thing, they need to go into the bullpen. So that's my opinion. I think that's what the Braves need. I mean, their offense is geared up. I mean, they can score runs when they want to. They can, most games they lost this year, the bullpen has given up, the game after they had leads going into the bullpen, and the bullpen relieves or blows the lead. So I mean, if they need somebody, they need to sharpen up that bullpen and give them a quality bullpen.
So is there any team besides the Atlanta Braves that you can see pulling up a trade in the trade deadline? Who do you think is going to be, leaving their team? What do you think they should pull?
I mean, we can see a lot of teams. We can see the National Party pulling somebody, another hitter or so. They need some help too. They're playing 500 ball right now. So I mean, another hitter for the Nationals, go after like a Trout, type player. See if they can pull the Trout out of the West back into the National League. I mean, that's one way. I like to see the Braves. If the Braves want to make another, hitter for that, Trout is one of those names been going around. Was for the Atlanta Braves. I can see probably like Oakland Athletics probably making a couple moves in their lineup and probably their pitching, adding something to their pitching staff. I mean, it's all about what they need at what time and if they can pull some trades out. But you don't want to try to set you up and get a trade, and you got a team that your team is still in second place right now. You don't want to mess up the team chemistry too. So I mean, some of these teams might be hesitant to go out and pull a trade. Some of them teams say, "Hey, I need this player. We're going to pull the trade." I see a few teams pulling here and there, but to me, I think the major players are going to probably be the Atlanta Braves in the pitching staff area, and I see probably maybe the Nationals and getting another power hitter or a good contact hitter there. You can see Milwaukee probably blossoming up a little bit more because I mean they're playing good ball. But they also can improve in their bullpen and probably in their starting rotation a little bit. Adding another starter couldn't help that, problem there too. So, I mean, San Francisco could be a player too. Dodgers might be a player. It all depends on what team. I mean, are the Rangers going to give up into their players? Probably not.
As much as I hate to say it, and I want the Rangers to keep him on the team. But if he does come up on the trading block, I can see St. Louis taking Joey Gallo.
To me, but I mean, the Rangers got to weigh their options too. I mean, are they want to be, they might not contend this year, but their bullpen, their team is like 32-49, they're 17 games out, but they're 7-3 the last 10 games, one win. They could be turning around.
They're in the lead right now. They're in the lead right now over the Mariners 2-0.
So they could be in a way they could be building towards next season. So they might not want to trade any of their players away, and maybe they want to keep some of their players to where they can make that run next year. You don't want to trade a player here and there, and they could set you back 5 or 6 games for next season. So I mean, you got to watch. Teams got to watch who they want to trade, what they want to get, and how they're going to just contend next year for the teams that are out of reach right now.
So I'm actually kind of keeping an eye on some of these games that are going on right now. So far, we actually do not have an error as we did, as we did last week. Miami Marlins was one of their players. I can't remember who it was able to have a run scored because there was an error on third base, an overthrow on third base. There's been a couple of times like that. I'm currently watching Los Angeles and Baltimore. As Baltimore currently has the lead 7-6, I think. Yes. Yeah, they currently have the lead 7-6 over Baltimore. 6-5 over in the bottom of the fourth. Giants and Diamondbacks. Giants are over the Arizona Diamondbacks right now, 3-0 at the top of the fourth. Middle of the fifth, we're actually about to hit bottom of the fifth. The Red Sox are over the Oakland Athletics, a team that gave up their first series loss since 2016 against Texas Rangers at home. And then the Texas Rangers are up 2-0 over the Seattle Mariners. Now, looking at the standings real quick, the Minnesota Twins they haven't been doing great lately as they were a few weeks ago. However, they went on a roll as they swept Texas. They swept Texas. I get it, it's Texas, but they were on a roll, and they had at one point they were at 7-3 in their last 10 games. But now they're currently 5-5. Now, do you think that this Minnesota Twins team? Do you think that they are going to be a good second half of the season team?
Well, when we picked our preseason, to where team was going to place and stuff, we all had Minnesota in that top tier of that Central Division. And now we know what kind of team they have right now. They're 5-5. They lost 3 games in a row. They're 15 games out. I do not think that they're going to be a contender this year. They might have to revamp some of their players and stuff like that. Depends on one or two things. Could be with Minnesota here. They could be a team to be a major player in the trade deadlines and get some good players to help them blossom some of their runs, or they could be a team that might get rid of some of their players to benefit to getting younger and building off a few veteran, few younger players for next season. I mean, Minnesota right now are almost last place in their division. I mean, they only are half a game ahead of the Royals in their division out of last place. And like we said, Royals were in first place at one time in the division. And now they have lost 9 games in a row. They're 1-9 in the last 10 games. So they've fallen out of perspective here. So, I mean, in Chicago, I had Chicago actually being number 2 in this division behind Minnesota. And they're right now in the lead by 6 games over the Cleveland Indians. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to have to take one or two options here. It's going to have to take Minnesota get on a win streak and Chicago getting on a lose streak for them to come out there 15 games behind. That's a lot of games to make up here, even though we're going into the All-Star break.
Okay, out of all of these last place teams, so Baltimore currently sitting at 27-54. The Kansas City Royals sitting at 33-47. Texas Rangers sitting at 32-49. On the National League side of things, you have the Miami Marlins sitting at 34-46. Pittsburgh Pirates sitting at a 29-52, and then the Arizona Diamondbacks sitting at a 23-60. Which one of these teams do you see ending up making maybe making the playoffs. Maybe having like a Washington Nationals type season when they won 15 games out of the first place at the All-Star break. Do you see any team like that?
Well, if you look at the picture here, Baltimore is 23 and a half games behind Boston in the American League. I don't see them making any ground to making the playoffs. Kansas City 15-5, games behind Chicago. They could make a run, but I don't see that happening based on what they've been playing. I mean, they're on the second time they're on over a nine-game losing streak. I mean, they had 11-game losing streak early in the season, and now they're up to a 9. That's 20-game losing streak here coming up, over the last two spans here for them. So I don't see them making. Texas right now, they're 7-3. They're making a little bit of headway. They're 17 games behind. Out of that whole aspects here, Houston's going to have to falter really bad, and Texas is going to have to keep playing really good baseball. I don't see them making a contender this year. Maybe next couple years they might be a contender. It all depends on who they keep and if they have let some players go. The only team really that has a mirror image that are not in double figures is that National League East and the Florida Marlins. But right now, the Florida Marlins are one game, lost one game to 3-7. They just lost to the Braves, 1-0 today. So, they could make a run. They have a legitimate shot at 8.5 games behind the New York Mets. And once again, the Mets could be, they still got Grom, but if other teams can figure out how to get around Grom, the Braves faced Grom and they beat them, So, I mean, the Mets are not a sure thing. I think the Marlins could make a run, but I really don't see them making one. I see them probably pulling up maybe one or two spots, maybe on that tear. Pittsburgh, no way. I am not going to talk about them. No way. Even though they're 20 games out, there's no way they're going to compete against, St. Louis, Cincinnati, or Chicago, or the Brewers. They're 10 games behind St. Louis in that fourth spot. And then the Diamondbacks, they're far gone for close. They're almost 30 games behind. San Francisco, they're 28.5 games behind. They are actually 13 games behind Colorado in that fourth place. So the only one out of the whole pitch you might see can make a run is the Florida Marlins. Well, actually, Miami Marlins now. So,
yeah, I don't. That's all the questions that I have. I'll give one last score update. The Kansas City Royals are currently in the lead over the Minnesota Twins, as the Twins are currently at the top of the ninth, and they're currently up at that. Bottom of the ninth, you have the Colorado Rockies and the St. Louis Cardinals tied. Colorado is currently up on that. The LA Angels are currently up over the Baltimore Orioles, and the Angels are up in the lead, top of the fifth. Baltimore is up on that. Giants are currently in the lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks, 3-2. Boston Red Sox are in the lead, 2-0, with them up on that. And bottom of the fourth, Seattle Mariners are up on that, but they're down 2-0. So that's all I have. Any final comments before we give this a close?
Yes. Some teams, when you say you make 4 errors in a game, you don't win a game. Look at the Dodgers and the Nationals. Dodgers committed 4 errors in that game, and they still won 10-5. You don't see, when we say errors, team makes the most errors, don't win games. Yeah, look at the Dodgers. They made 4 errors and still won 10-5.
Yeah, I really don't they're not showing the video replay on that, so I can't really break down those errors, to show exactly what went wrong. So that is all I have. This has been Nate the Great and Ray Cruz signing out. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.